All right, so this is a little weanling that Kiara bought for me about a week ago. And his name is Torin. He's an Irish sport horse. And before we put him out in the pasture where he's going to live all winter to just kind of grow up and grow taller and be a kid, I just wanted to go through some of the stuff that we do to prepare a real youngster like this for the life that they're going to lead as an adult horse and all the things that they might encounter in their formative years. And it's just so much easier to help them understand these concepts when they're little and when their mind is just completely fresh and a sponge than trying to redo this stuff when they've already maybe learned the exact opposite of what we would like them to know. So what I'm going to go through with him in here today is the same thing I've been doing the last few days, where every day I come in here and give him just a little lesson on a bunch of little things and help him kind of come along towards the eventual goal is that he can lead really well on a halter and kind of understand how him and I interact in space and be able to be touched on important parts of his body and stuff like that. So I'm going to go through all the exact same stuff that you might have seen me do with an adult horse in a round pen, or it'd be the exact same thing as I'd do with a Mustang who had just come from the wild. It doesn't really matter, what age the horse is or what type of horse. They all kind of need to know this stuff. So the first thing I need to see is how he and I interact in this pen loose. And you notice I've got a pretty small pen here. I don't want a little guy getting a lot of steam up, especially even the corners in a square-ish pen like this can sometimes help at first if you have a horse who's a little bit more inclined to squirt away from you. I'd rather him be figuring out how to slow down than figuring out how to try to just run faster and faster and faster. And it would probably hurt him if I tried to work him in my bigger round pen. So he probably won't get that until he's a little older. But this is a kind of a perfect size place right now. So just like in the round pen, the first thing I need to see is, can he hear me at all? Can he respond to me when I ask him if I can cause some movement? And he says, yeah, I remember from yesterday. And as soon as he can kind of flow around the pen a little bit, like he's doing now, I want to start walking back here off of his hip, just like I'd be doing with an adult horse in the round pen. And what I want to see there is there some place in the pen where he gets really stuck? Is there some place where he feels a little bit of squeeze in between me and the wall and he has to accelerate? Can he stand to have me walk back here behind his hip, behind his shoulder, where his vital organs are, where a horse should naturally feel pretty threatened by a predator? And he's saying, no, I've seen you here before and you haven't hurt me the last few days. We're probably all right. Very good. So I might see, is he just walking around because he's supposed to, or is he really responding to me? So I'm going to see if I can cause just a little more movement. Yeah, just that's plenty. So when I'm ready, I'm going to step over here and see if I can help him to change direction. And I really want him to turn away from me and change eyes behind like that at first. Yeah, good boy. So he came through that blind spot behind with no real trouble there. He didn't really mind me pushing on him back behind his tail. But if he was showing me any trouble with that, where maybe he came out on the new eye and he squirted away from me, well, it'd be no problem. I'd kind of just slide across my little pen here and I'd say, why don't you try going the other way? I'll push on his eye here. And he has to figure out how to arrange his feet to back up a little bit and make some space between him and the wall to be able to do that turn. And that can be quite scary for a little horse, but he's not having any trouble with it anymore. So right there, he kind of thought about looking me up. And normally that might take a little longer if this was our first session, but he's kind of already thinking, he's like, I'm pretty sure if I ask about coming to stand by you, you might let me. Hi. I'll kind of let him investigate me and I'll see if I can come in here and pet on him a little bit. And I'd love to pet him a little more firmly and pet a little more, but it's so dry here right now that if I pet too much, I start getting staticky. And he really does not like being shocked, which is no surprise. So I'm kind of looking for spots on him where he's been chewing on himself to scratch a little bit too. There, nice. I'll kind of try to quit in the middle of the good part and take a step away, see what he wants to do. He kind of came with me mentally there, but he stayed put. So I'm just going to go back to work. I'll say, that was a really good question to ask me if you could come stand with me. I really liked it. but I kind of want to see you change eyes behind a few more times before we start working on the hooking on piece. Let's take a moment here and get my rope organized. There we go. So I'm going to take every opportunity I can right now to ask him to change eyes behind. I'm not really going to ask him to start turning in and turning towards me and coming through that blind spot in front until he's on a rope. Because right now I want him at any point where he feels startled, I'd love for him to be able to just move his feet. Put some space between the two of us. Take that space if he needs it. Now he says, I don't really need it that much. You're not going to hurt me, but he didn't know that the first day we met. So once again here, I'm going to say, hey, if I asked you to kind of liven up, could you? And he says, well, I don't need to, but there you go. Okay, and I'm going to step across and say, could you go the other way? There's his eye. That's really important that I release every time I see that new eye come out on the other side. I want him always thinking for the whole rest of his life that anytime I ask him to change eyes and take that risk and go through that blind spot behind, that there's always going to be a little moment of peace on the other side. I say, can you kind of go just a little faster here? So I know it's early in the morning, but it's not really. Okay, good. I'll see here if I turn my shoulders. I'll say, oh, you kind of missed me there. Could you go through here to your right? Release. Nice and smooth. I might see if he can speed up his walk. There, that was a little better response. And it's really important that I get these feet really flowing around here, because when I start adding other stuff, like a rope around his neck, or later on when I start messing with my halter, oh, there he looked me up on the right side, so I just going to allow that and give a little bit of ground. It's going to be really important that he thinks that I am into movement, so that when he feels something he doesn't quite understand, it's going to be a lot easier for him to figure out how something works if he offers me movement instead of offering getting stuck. And actually the first day that I tried to mess with him in here with my lariat rope around his neck to start working on his halter training, he just wasn't quite freed up enough, and he started getting stuck and wasn't really sure what to do. So I had to backtrack a little bit and just go back to this stuff and just really moving him around the pen loose until he got pretty confident and was able to flow through the corners. So here I step over here, there's his mind. There's his feet. I'll kind of let him catch me here on the right side and I'll go and pet him. Yeah, hi. It's cool to see yesterday when I did this with him, he was a little bit standoffish at first when I started coming over to pet him. He wasn't quite sure he wanted to get his feet settled standing next to me. So hopefully that means I got a little bit of a change yesterday and that he's feeling a little bit better about me. And I don't mind him investigating me one bit. If he uses his teeth, I might have to send his feet away. But if he's just kind of lipping on me, that's nice. All right, what a good job. So that's all looking as good as I need it to for me to move on and start putting my rope around his neck. Good boy, there he's working his mouth. So I've done this with him a few times. So the first few days I had to build a big loop and kind of toss it over his neck as he walked by. And that's a perfectly fine way to get started on this. But since he's had this over his head a few times and he's had a halter on too, and I've been rubbing him on his head and his ears like that, I'm just going to start pretending like this is any old piece of gear. Now I'm still going out and around his eyes, but when I get to here, I'm just going to kind of use my forearm to kind of flatten his ears and bring that rope up and over, just like it's going to be my reins one day. And I'm going to settle this down here around the base of his neck. And the reason for that is these little horses, it's so easy, even just with a rope up here around kind of up by his jaw, but let alone a halter, it's really easy to overpower them. And I really want him thinking about coming off of the feel of my rope and understanding how it affects his feet, because he thought it was a good idea, not because he had no choice. Oh yeah, thank you, Kara. And the other thing that's special about this rope that makes it not just any lariat is this is what we call a knot rope, where it has this double overhand knot tied in it here, so that the Honda, if he were to get in a jam and really pull away from this, it will come up tight against the rope there and it won't choke him. And older horses, you know, they have stronger necks and a lot bigger muscle and stuff here, and they're way less susceptible to that. But these little guys can get really scared, especially if this comes up tight around the base of their head. And I just don't want that to happen. So I use this rope that's made out of a rope that I used to use only for roping feet. So it's really fuzzed up and soft and worn out and just kind of lighter than a newer lariat. But if all you have is a newer lariat, that's okay. But tying that knot in it can be really, really useful. So now, just like we were doing when he was loose, the first thing I want to see is just, can I cause any movement in the pen? And the first day that he had that rope on his neck, he was like, I'm not sure I can move with this thing, or I didn't know if he was supposed to. So having that built in where he's really used to responding and used to being driven around the pen is going to make it way easier for him to figure out that I'm looking for the exact same thing I wanted 30 seconds ago. There's just something on him now. Very good. So the next thing I'm going to check out with this, and this would be the first thing I do with any horse that comes in for training or that I'm starting or that I get from the wild, is I want to start flipping my slack up and over the other side. Oh, geez, those were miserable tosses. There we go. And if he gets stuck, I'm going to drive him on and say, keep going. I just want to see if you can wear that around the other side. And for many horses, this might be the first time that they've ever felt the presence of a human on both sides of their body at once. And that's going to be a lot of their life if they're going to be a riding horse. So it's interesting to see how they respond to that. Because he can see me on his left eye, and he can feel and see that rope on his right eye. So then if I put a little bit of feel in this, I want to start to be able to operate him kind of by his hind end first. Because if I can cause lateral movement of the hind end long before I ever start actually trying to do anything with his head and his neck, probably it's going to be a lot easier for him to stay freed up instead of getting stuck when he feels like he's in a little bit of a bind. So here, if I flip my slack over the other side, it lands down around his hock there. And if he got startled and kind of trotted around the pen, well, it's a pretty small pen. I could let him travel a little ways and he wouldn't go too far. And just whenever he slowed down, I'd put a little bit of slack back in this rope. And then when he was walking really nice and soft like this, I could step over here, put a little bit of feel on that. And I'm going to release every time there, that inside hind leg steps across. Very good. Well, I'll flip that over the other side. That was a little cleaner toss. If you get stuck somewhere, I'll say, keep going. I want you to keep flowing for me. I'll put a little bit of feel in that rope. There, the hind thought about it. There's another thought. There was a nice step with the hind. We'll go through this corner this time because he kind of wanted to get a little bit stuck there. Now I'll put a little bit of feel on that rope. So what do you think? Good. There's that hind foot responding. There, it did it again. There. So in addition to this being absolutely crucial practice for him, seeing something fly up and through that blind spot behind and land on his hind leg on the other side, he's also getting big preparation for how to kind of get himself out of trouble if he ever gets wound up in something. Even if he's just on my lead rope later on and he gets startled by something and he turns away and that lead rope falls across his hind leg. Well, a horse who's never had this is going to be pretty apt to kick at it or get scared and jump away from it or maybe even back up into it really hard. But if he's had enough practice of feeling something wrap around that hind leg and he knows it means me no harm, he can soften to it, and he can find his way out of that little bit of constriction. Well, at the very least, it'll make it easier for him to figure out how to be ridden, and it might save his life. Very good. So that time he wanted to get settled after he changed eyes. He didn't just walk off. So I'm just going to let him be peaceful. All right, there he looked me up a little bit. Investigate that rope. So now he's met my minimum criteria for where I'd kind of start to use this rope as it's going to be for most of his life. So that's where I'm going to just put a little tiny bit of feel on the base of his neck. Good. And I'm releasing. Same thing when that inside hind crosses over. And he's only had, 4 or 5 little lessons on this that were about 5-10 minutes each. But he's already thinking, yeah, following the feel of that rope is working pretty well. There, good. Go and pet him. Same as before. Good boy. Okay, so for now, I'm going to drive him away after this. In a minute, I might start sending him across in front to go the other way, but he's just starting to do this. So I might liven him up again, say, I love that you're so peaceful, but are you just kind of dead? He says, nope, I was just pretty peaceful. And when I want to see the other eye, I have a way of getting there where he's going to change eyes behind. He's going to give to my rope. There, release. Then here, if he looks me up, I didn't quite make it. So don't get stuck in the corner. Good. Now if I put just a little bit of feel in this rope, there's a try, release for the hind. Very good. And a big part of the reason this is working is he kind of figured out how to do this exact dance with nothing on him. So now when the rope's in play and it's just kind of helping him do something he already wanted to do or already knew how to do, then it's not causing him any additional trouble. And if he ever gets confused and then the rope helps him find something he already knew he wanted, that's just going to make all this stuff come together really easy for him. So here I'm just stepping towards his hind and I'm driving just a little bit towards those hind feet to say, can those kind of operate if I ask him to? And he says, yeah, no problem. So the next piece that's going to lead, into the actual leading is I'm going to move these hind feet so that they carry the whole horse forward. And then here I'm going to start to open up my circle a little bit until he says, oh, if I move my front feet, that'll get me closer to you. And I like that. Yeah. Good job. And we spend a ton of time with our horses later in their life trying to get them to operate more from their hind end, trying to get them to use their hind end first and not drag themselves with their front end. Well, what if the very first thing we ever teach them is how to get the hind end active first? Furthermore, the place where people really end up in trouble with youngsters especially, but same with older horses, where they get those sticky feet that people have such a hard time resolving in young horses, is that they just pull on the rope first. And even if they're smart enough to not pull straight in front of the horse where they can just lock up all 4 feet and they maybe do it a little bit off to the side, and the horse figures out how to move their head, neck, and shoulders and those front legs towards the human a little bit, but then they've walked their front out away from the hind, and they don't know how to pick up the hind and catch him up at that point. So what they need to do is move their front feet backwards again. So then they pull against the rope, they feel trapped, they learn how to pull back, they learn how to resist, and they learn how to plant their feet even stronger the next time to keep from getting in that position. But in the rest of his life, if he ever gets his feet stuck, if I know that I can get back here and say, what if you move those hind feet laterally? Well, you can see when that hind foot steps under and forwards, it moves closer to the front feet. And then the most obvious thing in the world is for him to move the front. So now for the first time today, I'm going to ask that front end to move out and around. Now, he had a little lesson on that on the halter yesterday, and clearly it came through all right. Let's see, keep moving, good. Okay, so over in here, I'm going to reach for him. There I've got a little bit of feel on my halter. I'm going to step in towards his hind. And when that hind breaks over just a little deeper, like that, and he weighs nothing at all, I'll just come in here and rub on him. So this is kind of circling him up, just like I'm going to be doing when he's getting prepared to ride in a few years. And then from here, I'm going to say, if I step here towards your hind, can you move your hind without your front stepping forwards and away from him? You can see he still weighs nothing at all. He's following the feel of that rope. And then if I widen my circle a little bit, the hind keeps moving forwards. There, the front feet are involved, but he has to figure out how to bring that left front a little more towards me. There. And they're all quit while all 4 feet are still operating. So he's figuring out how to turn the movement of the hind into the movement of all 4 feet. And then I'm releasing while he's still winning. Yeah, good boy. I'll do that again. I'll say, can you move those hind feet? He says, you bet. Can you keep moving those hind feet? And then if I step off here at a little bit wider angle, there he said, oh, I kind of fell up against the rope there, but it helped him find where he wanted to be. Almost. I'm waiting for that left front leg to really start to do that and bring the whole little horse towards me. So there's not all 4. There's all 4 feet. Good job. I'll just love on him when he gets here. Yesterday, the first couple times I reached up to pet his head, he kind of was a little bit unsure. He kind of pulled it away, and I didn't force it. I just held my hand out and said, okay, never mind. And by the end of our session yesterday, he was hunting it just like this. So that shows me that hopefully it meant something to him that I understood when he didn't want me to pet his head. And now he says, I like it when you pet my head. All right, so I'm gonna put my halter on. This is looking pretty good.